Ready, Johnny? It's fucking snowing, Johnny.
Oh my god.
Puerto Ricans are made for this shit.
God, I can't believe it. Look, it's snowing for real. It's not even fake. It's real. We're here. Oh my
It's
god.
fucking cold, Johnny.
Holy shit.
¿Qué clase de mierda? Cero nieve.
We made it to Columbus, Ohio.
Barely in one piece, Johnny Styles.
One piece. Tell the people what happened.
So we get to Darling, Fort Lauderdale Airport at around what time did you arrive?
It's like 5.
Yeah, around 6. It was like 5 something, 6 in the morning. We're expecting to be in Columbus at 11 in the morning. Get to Fort Lauderdale. No such luck. Tornado warnings over Atlanta Airport all day. We finally get to take off. We get to Atlanta at what time? Like noon?
Yep.
We get to Atlanta at noon. And Johnny Styles experienced Aaron vodkas for the first time in Atlanta Airport. He's lost his voice.
Yes.
He's gained a new shade of red in his skin tone.
Absolutely.
Our flight got rebooked. I sat next to a man who was very adamant about his armrest. So I curled up in a ball and fell asleep. But we made it to Columbus at 4:50 in the afternoon. So we've pretty much been at the airport for over a full work day. It's raining. It's 28 degrees. Hispanic people were not made for this kind of weather.
Absolutely not.
I'm still in shorts.
Yes, sir.
I'm still in shorts. We'll see how long that lasts. I may acquire a case of hypothermia here momentarily, but we're here. So now tomorrow, because we were supposed to scope out the scene for the VIP party that a lot of people are not going to be welcome to, haters. The VIP party for the REDCON1 sponsored VIP party for the Arnold today, but since we came here so late, now we're going to have to see it tomorrow morning, and then Johnny Styles and I are going to have to take a later flight out of Columbus, Ohio. So tonight we're going to take in Columbus' finest entertainment and see where the world is ready to take us. What do you think we can get into?
I have no idea right now.
We're in my favorite store in Columbus. I always make a pilgrimage to the store to find good old wrestling toys that we can buy.
What do you think about the venue?
The venue's great. We partied here last Arnold, and it was great. This was all packed, jam full of people. All those bars, everything upstairs was packed full of people. So this year, now that we're pushing it, it's like packed to the brim.
Yes.
Sold out, hanging from the rafters.
Oh, around the
How long
perimeter.
it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there's a stage, so you'll at least you have an idea.
Okay. That's like, it's big, and it's like directly across. There's Express Live right there. So you literally just walk over the wrestlers. So.
Wow, this is nice.
Yeah.
This is better, right?
We're not made for snow, Johnny Styles. Not made for snow.
So
We have secured the venue for the exclusive REDCON1 Crown Jewel VIP party.
there you go.
And now we are on the snowy trail to the Arnold Headquarters. This is very exciting. I've never been there. I'm an Arnold mark, so I'm excited to see what kind of memorabilia and Bob Lormer's dad, Jim Lormer,
Yes.
is going to meet us there and tell us some old bodybuilding stories. So it's very exciting.
And here's brand new, so not a lot of people have gone there.
Yeah, they've done, and they just redid it. So we're the first visitors to the new Arnold Headquarters
First ever. Oh
So-
my gosh.
So we are elite.
We're here in Columbus, Ohio.
We pulled up, and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm in Jim Lormer's spot. Let me back out."
I know, we almost took his spot.
Can't take us anywhere.
Good morning.
But these guys, they're one of our main sponsors, and they're one of the guys in the industry that's still growing. They also do all of our video on the pro show during the night. They run all the video stuff for us, and so
We appreciate that great.
yes, and now they're
Yeah, we love the Arnold. Arnold's our favorite show to do every year.
a nutrition company still growing, and they're one of the companies that are growing very rapidly. So
Very fast.
they're doing a great job. So.
Oh, that's great.
That's 11,000 girls and 11,000 boys, a split right down the middle.
Wow.
But last year we had 80 events. This year we have 85 events. So to put it in perspective, the Olympic Games has 10,000 athletes and 30 sports.
Jesus.
We have 22,000 athletes and 85 events this year. So,
Wow.
and of course we have, as you know, all the convention center downtown, but all the high expo center. But then there's a dozen, just about 10, I think, other off-site places like for swimming.
Yeah.
And the wide variety of events that we if somebody has a sport that they is well organized at
Most
the
likely have
national
an
level,
event
they say, could we be part of it? Why we make them part of it.
Yeah.
The beauty of it is the kids learn the message from sports about life. As you pretty much get back out of everything you do in life in direct proportion to what you put in.
Right.
And that's a really valuable life lesson.
Yeah.
And nothing teaches it to be better than sports. And when you can do an event that has in ours here, 22,000 youngsters' lives you're affecting, and that you're really doing something. And of course, as you know, why we also have Arnold Sports Festivals in all the other continents too.
Right.
I went to law school. I came out of law school and went directly into the FBI. That was my first career in the decade of the 50s. And my whole time in the FBI, and you know that's a while ago, 50s, was spent in the intelligence field interviewing communists, some hate groups too, but primarily working with communists. And the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and 80s were times there were just two great powers in the world, the Soviet Union and the United States. And as I would talk to these communists from the Soviet Union, they would say, you are going to be living under communism in the future. That is the wave. It is the fair, it's going to be the supreme economy. And of course I did not agree with that. But prior to 1952, the Soviet Union never had an Olympic team. But in the 50s, the same period as I was working with, they started to develop an Olympic development program, given the full resources of that huge Soviet Union, to focusing on the Olympic sports, and very noticeably track and field as a highlight Olympic sports. And so they're essentially professionalizing a whole nation full of athletes to win and make a statement on the international stage about the superiority of a system by beating us in athletics. So the first time that the Soviet Union and the United States came together against each other was in 1959. And that competition was down in Philadelphia. And track and field was the sport. And I was living out here in Columbus at the time, and I said, and I was out of the Bureau at the time. I said, those guys are coming in here to beat us, you know. So I went down and watched the event. 2-day competition. And because the Soviet men had been training professionally for almost a decade, they did pretty well. But our U.S. guys, because of our great intercollegiate, interscholastic programs, beat the Soviet guys. But in the same field, on the same day, the women were competing. And in the high jump, the girl representing the United States in the high jump was doing what you call the scissors high jump. You remember how in grade school you go over, you just sort of step over the bar, for God's sakes. But a girl was doing that in international competition. And the Soviet girl was doing what was then the Western roll and jumping a full foot higher than the U.S. girl, you know. And each one of the events, it was so clear that our U.S. girls had not had any real training competitive opportunity. Right. And I thought, so at the end of the weekend, the Philadelphia Inquirer, a headline goes out across the world because and that was combining the men's and women's team scores. The women had done so bad that it said, Soviet team beats U.S. Our men beat the other men, but the women were so poor, and it was not their gross fault. They were not trained. Right. No score sports at all. Right. So I'm coming back from Philadelphia, and I'm saying, oh, I could find a girl right here in Worthington, Ohio, where we were. I could show her how to do the high jump, and she could jump as high as that damn girl on the U.S. team, just show her how to do it right. Yeah. So I contacted the coach of the track and field here at Worthington and said, can you identify for me the top 14 or 15-year-old girl athlete in Worthington? Mm-hmm. And he said, you think you can? So he came back a couple of days later and said, this girl's name is Melissa Long. She's 14, but she comes out and runs with the boys, and she's staying right with the boys. And I think she's a great athlete. So I contacted Melissa and her mother. Of course, Melissa was not an athlete, a real good athlete, who had no chance to express herself. Mm-hmm. And here was a guy coming to her talking about the Olympic Games, maybe. Mm-hmm. And so she was in heaven. And I got her a pair of track shoes and trained her a little bit. But a few weeks later, there was a huge junior Olympic competition at Ohio State University. Columbus Recreation Department's running it. And I read about it. I said, Melissa, we're going to take you down and put you in this. I have no idea who's going to be down there. So I went down to Ohio State Stadium there, and 1,500 youngsters showed up. 1,500 teenage youngsters. And I entered Melissa in both dashes, and she won both dashes. Notwithstanding of those 1,500 youngsters, 700 of them were little girls. Right. But then I saw other girls were pretty much staying close to Melissa. Mm-hmm. And other girls were out in the field throwing things for her. And I thought, wait a minute, there was real potential here. Because the best girl athletes out of 700 girls from all the different schools in Central Ohio, they were from all over the schools. And so I went to the Columbus Recreation Department, told the Columbus Recreation Department that I wanted the entry blanks of those girls up there, the top girls. And that girl picture was taken in, again, 1959. 59, 60 years ago. And I identified each one of those girls. I talked to each one of their families. And they, their own respective schools over this community of 1 million people. That's a huge community. They were the best athletes in their schools, but the idea was to bring them all together and run them against each other. And so then I went to Ohio State University, talked to the track coach at Ohio State University, and he had been down in Philadelphia. He had seen what happened to the girls getting creamed down there.
Right.
And he said, if you can get the approval of the athletic director, I'll let these girls work out indoors at Ohio State University after our boys team completed their workouts. So then we had a team of about a dozen dynamite girl athletes and a great indoor track facility to train them in. And I started training them. And we started taking them to East Coast track meets. I don't know how familiar you are with the sport of track and field, but the indoor sport of track and field on the East Coast is very strong. The Milrose Games, games up in Washington, D.C., Buffalo. Every weekend we're taking a relay team on the West Coast, and they're winning. So the following summer, June of '60, okay, my company, Nationwide Insurance Company, from whom I work, gave me the company jet to take my team to the Olympic trials in Texas.
Wow.
So I arrived in Texas with this girls' team looking like that, and the next thing I know, I'm secretary of the United States Olympic Committee for women's track and field. Okay? So just them seeing, here's a guy comes in on a jet with a plane with a good-looking, very competitive girl team. So 2 years later, I ran the national indoor championships here at Ohio State University, and that team won the national championships. In 1964, they made me chairman of the United States Olympic Committee for women's track and field. So throughout the 60s, I was very much involved in the promotion of women's track and field. And I ran the national outdoor championships. Well, even though I was chairman of the U.S. Olympic Committee for women's track and field in '67, the people in weightlifting knew that I liked weightlifting and bodybuilding. And they said, we can get the national championships in weightlifting here in '67 at Veterans Memorial Auditorium, if you will run the competition. That's right. And so I said, because they knew I knew how to run national competitions.
Right.
So I said, okay, so we ran that, and it was very successful. As a consequence of which, the national weightlifting body came to me and said, we have never had a world weightlifting championship in the United States. I said, we think in 1970 we can get a world weightlifting championships here. And if, again, we run it and put it together right. And I said, I'll be glad to run the championships for it. It's a 7-day competition, a weight class a day. I said, you can lose your shirts unless you have a Mr. contest. Because I knew the sport. I knew that the Mr. contests were the real draw. And they said, whatever you say, go. So I contacted ABC TV Wild World of Sports in New York. And I said, for the first time, we're having a World Weightlifting Championships here in the United States, and the Mr. World contest, will you televise it? And so they were the top TV show nationally at the time. They said they would do it. So then I had to get the top bodybuilders in the world to come in. And I knew who the top 6 guys were, one of whom was a young Austrian who had just come over. He was not really speaking English too well.
Right.
And I found him in the gym, Gold's Gym in California, and I told him about Russ running the World Weightlifting Championships and Mr. World contest here with television. And he said, I really want to be there. He said, but on your weekend, that weekend of September, on that Saturday of that weekend, I have already made a commitment to be in the Mr. Universe contest in London, England. And he said, unfortunately, he said, I must make that commitment. And I said, well, if you will compete Saturday night, get the last plane out of Heathrow, you pick up 6 hours coming across. We will meet you by plane in New York and bring you to Columbus, and you can compete. And he said, well, if you will do that, I will do that. So he won in London, flew over, brought him here, and he came in. Sergio Olivia was in. It was a big meet between Sergio and Arnold, and the place was packed. The place was packed. And after the event, Arnold beat Sergio, and that's the first time he really competed against, but he beat Sergio. But after the event, Arnold came up to me. That's the first time we'd ever met. And he said, this is the best event I have ever been in. He said, and this is very early in his career, he said, when I am done competing in this sport, he said, I want to go into the promotion of the sport. And I'm going to do everything I can to professionalize it and legitimatize it. And I'm going to come back to Columbus, Ohio, and ask you to be my partner. I said, yeah.
Sure.
Good idea. So he won everything for the next 5 years. And his last win, he won all the Olympias. And his last win was in South Africa in '75 when they made the movie Pumping Iron.
Yeah.
And on his way back from that win, he stopped in New York and called me and said, as I told you 5 years ago, I won my last Olympia, and next year I want to promote the Olympia here. You can see it's 76. And he said, I will get the athletes, I will help get sponsors, you run the event. And on a handshake in that year, a partnership for all those years since then, it's been on a handshake. So we ran the Olympia every year, you can see there, and it was doing real well. As I mentioned to you before, the Weeders started jerking us around. So in 1989, see where the green poster is? That's when we started Arnold's Schwarzenegger's name, 89. And so that was quite a while ago, obviously, over 30 years ago. But from that time there, from Warrensville on, we started to add events. We were on the first to add women's bodybuilding in the thing, you know. But as you come around the wall here, you see this is all a historical development here. In '89, Arnold was also chairman of the President's Council on Physical Fitness and Sports.
Yep.
President Bush appointed him,
Yep.
and I was on that council with him also. And at that time, we were getting in contact with a lot of other sports. And these other sports like martial arts, gymnastics, would one by one say to us, we know you're doing a good size bodybuilding event in Columbus. Could we be part of your weekend? And so that's how the growth gradual started. Every year we are expanding.
So every year a new sport comes in.
Precisely.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is you can see on this wall here, you see the growth going. Every year there's more and more sports. Till now, this one here, this past year, we have the other poster ready to go. What was in 2019, 22,000 athletes and 80 sports. And it's just a gradual growth as you see all the sports being added all the way around. So that's really the quick romance of what's been done, gentlemen.
Yes.
But that's how it started. All started out of a girls' track team.